Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Confessions of a Celebrity Bodyguard. My name's Chuck Oliveris. Got a little late start this morning due to technical difficulties. If you're just joining the podcast and you've never watched before, thanks for checking it out. If you're a return watcher, return viewer, return listener, thanks so much for your support. Uh, Getting a lot of positive feedback on it, and that's great. I'm glad everybody's enjoying the stories and stuff. In this episode, we're continuing to talk about my time at Warner Brothers Studios. I used to save all my little placards from everything I did, and we're kind of continuing on with that in this episode number 3. We were talking last week about some of the sets at the studio there at Warner Brothers, and how when you see them in person, they're always a lot smaller. And I kind of wanted to show you something for you people watching YouTube. If you see this picture right here, if you don't recognize that set, that's kind of what it looks like when it's not lit and dressed. And then when the actors are there and it's all lit up and dressed, of course, that's Everybody Loves Raymond. Ray Romano was a pretty cool guy. I worked that show a couple times inside the studio while they were filming it. And what I thought was kind of cool about him is he used to do this little thing before the show would tape. He would come out and warm up the audience and ask them questions about the show and different episodes and stuff. And it was kind of fun because when they got a right answer, he would hand out $100 bills to everybody. And I always thought that was really, really cool of him. And it was something fun that they did all the time. The other person I wanted to mention to you was Doris Roberts, who played his mom. Of course, everybody remembers his mother on the show. I think she passed away a couple of years ago, but she was a wonderful lady, super, super sweet. And I used to see her around town all the time. I used to have to go down to Wilshire Boulevard for a lot of things. And I would always see her for some reason on Wilshire. I'd see her and she'd be in her, I think it was a Lexus that she had. But I'd look over, sometimes she'd be at a red light with me, and I'd look over and I'd be like, oh, it's Doris. But she looked like $1,000,000 every time you saw her. She looked just like she did on the show when she played Ray's mom. And she was just a sweet, sweet lady. She had a slew of grandchildren, and she was a great grandmother to them. And I just loved her to death. So I always got a kick out of it when I'd see her out in public, aside from being at the studio when she was doing the show. One of the other things I wanted to tell you about when we talk about sets and stuff, Shameless was a popular show. We spoke about it on episode 2 last week. Shameless had a little bar. If you remember, if you were a watcher of the show, Kevin worked at the Alibi. And that was a little bar that him and his girlfriend V worked at. And he was a bartender there and stuff. And if you're watching the YouTube channel, I just want to show you what a facade looks like when there's nothing. So that's the Alibi there if you're watching. And it's just a blank slate. But when that thing is dressed, you put a little snow out there, bam, it becomes the Alibi. And I just thought it'd be fun to show you that real quick because I used to see these facades all the time, and you'd look at it and it wouldn't be dressed, and you'd be like, I know that from something. What is it? And then you kind of realize, or it would come to you in time. And it was pretty cool to see that stuff all the time. There's a little town square on the back lot that they used for Gilmore Girls. And I would drive through there in my security van. And sometimes it would be dressed. If it was supposed to be fall, they would actually tie fall colored leaves into the trees and stuff. So when you drove through there, it looked like fall, even though it wasn't. I remember one time it was summertime down at the studio, and I went through that little town square and there was snow everywhere. And it actually made you feel cold. You deluded yourself to thinking this was a cold atmosphere. So that kind of stuff when you work on a movie studio is super cool. And there's always something fun to see every day. We're going to move on, and I'm going to talk about something I brought up last week. Frank Sinatra's old office at Warner Brothers Studios. So Frank Sinatra had this office, and his memorabilia, some of his stuff is still in that office. And it is now occupied by Joel Silver, who is a movie producer that produced a lot of movies like Lethal Weapon and Commando and a lot of other famous films that you know. But this office was like the coolest thing I ever saw. So Frank Sinatra's office is tucked back a little bit, just inside gate 3. And it had this glass window and this glass door, and you'd walk up to it. I'd have to check it at night. And I'd open the key and open the door to go check it. And when you walked in, there was like a little entryway with a secretary's desk on the left and some chairs and stuff for people to sit and wait. And then beyond that was like a frosted glass door, a single door, but there was a little button on the secretary's desk. You'd hit that button and that frosted door would go and just open up. And that was how you entered into the office. When you walked into that office, it was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I'm just going to throw up a picture of Frank here for you guys on YouTube. So there's the outside of the office there, and there's old Blue Eyes out in his overcoat with a couple interesting fellows behind him there. But the office itself is like something I've never seen. I mean, you know, these guys are going to have a nice office if you're somebody like Frank Sinatra or Joel Silver. And they only give this office to whoever the big guy is making the movies at the time on the lot. But this is the inside. If you're watching YouTube, couple mid-century looking chairs there and furniture, and the walls were gorgeous. They were just like this. I don't know if that was walnut or what, all polished, fireplace and everything. And it had like a full bar. There was a bar there. There were beautiful, beautiful windows on two sides. And there were like these banana trees out there and this very lush greenery. But there was a rock wall out there. And at the desk in the office, there was another button. And when you'd hit that button, a waterfall, the water would start spilling over the rock wall and stuff. And it was really something to see. And I always got a kick out of that. It was like one of those places when you go into it, you're like, whoa, look at this shit. It was pretty cool, right? Frank Sinatra had this office. And again, he did have a lot of memorabilia and stuff in there. And of course, it's now occupied by Joel. But I loved that place. It had its own bathroom and shower. Like I said, they had a bar. The bathroom was all black marble. It had a shower, a sink, and everything in there. And it was just a really, really cool thing to see. And I loved checking it at night and looking at Frank's memorabilia. And of course, they keep that stuff in there, even though other people are occupying it. So, Joel Silver, if you don't know what he looks like, I'll just show you real quick. This is Joel, big movie producer, lots of films, like I said, Lethal Weapon and stuff like that. Used to see this guy driving around on his little golf cart on the lot, and he would always have like it was like a Rolls Royce golf cart, and he'd have this big cigar hanging out of his mouth. And I mean, you'd look at this guy and you just knew he was a big movie producer or something. So we'd see him a lot. But that office of Frank Sinatra's is just something to see. And I don't think there's another office on that studio lot that's as cool as Frank's old office was, other than the head of the studio. And I have been in that office, and I can tell you that was a lot bigger than Frank's, and it was pretty amazing as well. I don't have any pictures to show you on the YouTube channel of that one, but it was definitely amazing. And it looked like, okay, you're the head of the studio, obviously, to have an office like this. So a lot of fun being able to go into those places and kind of check them out. And when I was a watch commander there, I worked a lot of nights at the beginning, and I got to explore a lot of that stuff, and that was the most funnest part of the job. So I want to talk now about a little place on the back lot that we call the Jungle. So the Jungle is an area at the very back of Warner Brothers lot when you get in there, and it's like a little forest back there, and it's used for all kinds of stuff. Movies like The Last Samurai, Clint Eastwood's Million Dollar Baby with Hilary Swank. They shot that back there. It has a little building there that they can actually shoot inside of. If you're watching YouTube, there's a shot of it right there for you. It's got a man-made pond in there as well. That can be a diner. That can be anything you want it to be, a hotel. And it was just really cool back there. Like I said, they had a little pond, so they had water, and they call it the Jungle because it looks kind of jungly. And you would just drive back in there, and it was very secluded looking. It was one of the coolest spots on the lot there. What was interesting is when you start there on the security staff in Warner Brothers, you're considered what they call set watch. Well, set watch means you start doing all the low level stuff, right? So set watch, they'll send an officer out there and be like, okay, you're going to be out in the jungle. They did it to me. I was out in the jungle, and my whole job out there was just to keep an eye on the film equipment that they had out there if they were shooting something out there. And at that time, I think it was Clint Eastwood's Million Dollar Baby that I was watching the equipment and stuff. But they kind of forget about you out there. You get posted out there and you're way out in that little jungle area. And I remember I was out there for about 12 hours one day. And I finally called the watch commander office and I go, "Hey, man, this is Chuck. I'm out in the jungle." And they're like, "Oh, shit. We forgot you were out there, bro. We'll send somebody to come get you." And it was hilarious because I did the same thing to a couple officers when I became a watch commander. I was like, posted them out there, and you just forget about them because it's so far back out there at the back of the lot that you forget somebody's out there posted. So it kind of sucks, but hey, that's initiation to the movie studio. Want to talk about Constantine. We're going to get into a little bit about Keanu Reeves. I'm going to talk about him quite a bit here for a minute. So when they were shooting Constantine, I showed you stage 16 in episode 2, where they did the perfect storm with Clooney and Wahlberg, that big stage. They used it for the movie Constantine. I'm a big fan of Keanu and I'm a big fan of Constantine. Uh, that stage in that movie, there's a scene where the 101 freeway is melted and fried, and the cars on the freeway are burnt to a crisp, and the tires are melted, and John Constantine is walking through all that and stuff. That scene was done in stage 16, and I got to go in there when they had that 101 freeway set up in there. And I'm telling you, it looked legit. Of course, they had a big green screen around the freeway, but the freeway and the cars that were melted and everything on the thing was so cool to see because I'd watched that movie. I knew exactly what scene that was. But that's when you sit and look at those things and go, wow, man, that's like pretty cool that they can do that. They can do some amazing stuff. So during that movie, while they were shooting there, Keanu was on the Warner Brothers a lot because a lot of his films were Warner Brothers. And they had a production office next to that stage 16 that they used for all the things they were preparing for the movie and stuff. So imagine at night, that movie's kind of creepy, right? There's demons and stuff. Imagine at night going in there and having to check those offices. And then I want to show you a picture of this demon that I would see when I'd walk in there. Remember this chick? Crazy, right? One of the craziest demons. If you're watching YouTube, you can see her there. Looks possessed, like Linda Blair in The Exorcist or something. But at night, I go in there to check that thing. There's all kinds of these demon things as you're going through the offices, and it's like, holy shit, scare the hell out of you, right? Because not all the lights are on. You're flipping them as you go. So that always creeped me out. And a lot of times I didn't even like to go in there because of that. It kind of freaked me out. We have a Warner Brothers museum on the lot, and that museum housed all the Harry Potter stuff. And on the second floor of that museum, when I would go check it at night, the little girl Emma, who was in the movie Harry Potter, they had a replica of her laying on this table. It was almost like a wax figure, but a little bit more accurate. And as I would walk around and check the doors around her body on that table and stuff, I swear to God, her eyes would follow me. It freaked me out all the time. I'd shine the flashlight on her face, and I feel like the eyes were moving with me as I was walking around the room. And it was like the craziest shit ever. They don't have that up there right now. I think it's all Batman stuff, and I think the Friends sets are in there for people to look at now. But just one of those experiences that just tripped me out going through that thing. So back to Keanu Reeves and Constantine. I don't know if you guys know this, but Keanu was born in Beirut, actually, and then raised in Toronto, Canada. His father was Hawaiian. His name is Keanu, which actually means cool breeze over the mountains, which is kind of cool. I think his father left the family pretty early on. So he was pretty much raised by his mother and his sister, who he was really, really close to. But I did a lot of stuff with him. The movie Matrix, and I don't know if it was the first one or the second one, but we did a press thing with him at the studio there. And basically, what these guys had to do, these actors that were in the film, Lawrence Fishburne, Carrie Ann Moss, you had Jada Pinkett, they would have to go into the sound stages, and then they would have segregated areas where they would go and interview with Access Hollywood or Entertainment Tonight. Some of them were Spanish stations, etc. But the thing that sucked is I would listen to them in there doing their interviews and stuff, and they were being asked the same questions by the same people over and over. And they did this shit for like, 8 hours a day. Part of the contract, you got to do press for the movie. One of the things that was interesting, Keanu took a break one time and he came outside the stage door to have a cigarette. And so I had to follow him out there and stay with him. It was just me and him. I said, okay, he's going to have a smoke. I'm going to have a smoke. And I was talking to him and I asked him, I go, dude, don't you go crazy answering the same questions over and over and over again? And he said, yes, but it's what we got to do. One of the things I want to tell you about this guy is he's amazingly polite and nice. One of my favorite people. I did a lot of stuff with him. I was around him a lot, and he couldn't be a cooler guy. There's a story, and a lot of people know this. My best friend Austin was asking me about this earlier today, but I had told him this during the Matrix movies. Those movies did very, very well, as you all know. They were very popular. He bought motorcycles for the entire crew on those movies because he was just generous like that. And he is also an avid bike rider himself. So I always thought that was pretty badass that Keanu bought bikes for everybody. I'm talking nice motorcycles, you know what I mean? So always thought that was a cool thing. We did a premiere with him down at the Disney Hall. Oh, one of the things, let me go back for a minute. Jada Pinkett. So my friend Bree Wilbanks was telling me she's been watching the podcast, and she goes, you're always talking about all these celebrities, you guarded or you were around and this and that. And she said, I never hear anything bad. You haven't slammed anyone yet. And she goes, I'm waiting to hear something bad. You're saying how nice everybody is. The truth of the matter is I didn't have a lot of bad experiences with people. There's a few of them. When I get into the Jimmy Kimmel Live late night show, when I worked there, I can tell you about a couple things. But in general, everybody was pretty cool. As far as the Matrix goes, I had Carrie Ann Moss that day doing the press, Keanu, Lawrence Fishburne and his wife were there and brought their dogs outside their trailer and stuff. They were all super, super nice. And of course, Miss Jada Pinkett. And if you're watching YouTube, there's a shot of her in the Matrix there. So, Bree, this is for you. Here's the one person I'm going to say. I'm not going to say she's a bitch. I'm just going to say she's not friendly. She's not friendly at all. So there you go, Bree. You wanted to know? Now you know. She's the first one that I kind of came into contact with that just wasn't friendly. The rest of them were so cool and very, very polite. And it kind of falls in line with what you hear about her anyway. It's interesting, too, because I actually liked her. She did a film a couple of years ago with Cher and Matthew Lillard and Demi Moore, and it was called If These Walls Could Talk. And it was about abortion and stuff. And she was amazing in it. But, yeah, not so nice, not so friendly. Matrix, I want to talk about these guys. We did a thing with Keanu and the Wachowski brothers. The Wachowski brothers actually directed all the Matrix films and stuff. And there was a guy at Warner Brothers Studios named Mel Ekman, a good friend of mine. When I went in there as a watch commander, he recruited me probably because I was a bigger guy and said, hey, you're going to start working some of the VIP stuff with me. And basically everything I learned about celeb security and high profile and stuff like that was because of Mel Ekman. He took me under his wing. And I think the first thing I did with him was a Matrix party, and it was at the Wachowski brothers' office in Venice Beach. Well, in Venice Beach, you go down into a neighborhood where all these little houses are and stuff near the beach, but there was a facility that had a fence all the way around it. You would have never known what it was if you didn't know. So it had this sliding gate and stuff. And when you're in high profile security and you're going to be guarding famous people like that, you do a walkthrough of all the venues or the locations where you're going to be going to actually do it day of or the night of. So we went to do our little scout of that facility. And when we walked in there, it was the coolest office I'd ever seen. So if you're watching YouTube, you see these little green little matrix things on that poster there. So that whole office kind of had that feel to it. When you walked in, the walls had those little green things and they were moving like LED lights and stuff. And then the board table where they would sit and have meetings and discuss things or whatever, it had those little matrix lights running up through it and stuff like that. And I just thought that was cool as shit because it was just like, whoa, look at this Matrix place. Pretty cool, right? So they had this party there, and we did our little walkthrough, and you just kind of have to scout it out and see where the exits are, the entrances, where the exposures might be for people who shouldn't be there trying to get in or anything like that. And we worked our whole night there. The night of the event, Keanu was pretty buzzed. Actually, he was out on the patio drinking some beers, and I could see he was feeling pretty good. But what a cool night that was! It was like I was out with all the Matrix people. Wachowski brothers, if you don't know, are kind of strange. Um, they're very unique in their lifestyle and stuff. And but they were very kind to us, and I had a great time working that event. And again, thanks to Mel Ekman for pulling me into that kind of environment and teaching me the ropes. Me and him did a lot of stuff together. He used me on a lot of cool things, and I'm forever grateful for him. And we did another thing for the Matrix down at the Disney Hall, which is actually in downtown Los Angeles. I don't know if you've ever seen it. So for those of you watching, here's a shot of it. Pretty cool building, right? Looks all futuristic and stuff. So on that night, we ran the metal detectors and the red carpet and all that for all the stars to come to the premiere of the movie and stuff. And I think one of the first people that came through my metal detector was Tim Allen and his wife and their daughter. And that was pretty cool seeing Tim Allen out there. I think I also had, yeah, I had Diddy, P. Diddy came through there. A lot of people that night, a lot of cool people. And of course, Mr. Christian Slater and his wife. Here's a shot of them if you're watching YouTube. And it was really kind of cool because these guys were just like being themselves and they're coming to the movie premiere. And it was just kind of fun to work that spot. So, I mean, just a blast of a night. Also, I'm trying to think of some other people that came through there that night. Cuba Gooding Jr., of course, Cindy Crawford. One of my favorite actors of all time came through my metal detector and was such a nice man, Mr. Michael Clark Duncan. And of course, he passed away as well. Jada Pinkett and Will Smith. I don't know if you guys remember Pat O'Brien. He used to host Access Hollywood. He was also a sports reporter for a while, but if you're watching YouTube, there's a shot of him there. Pat O'Brien was kind of cool, and I used to watch him on Access Hollywood, and I used to say I wanted his job because his whole job was just interviewing celebrities at all these events around Hollywood and stuff, and of course airing it on Access Hollywood. And I don't know if you guys remember him, but he kind of got in trouble on a sex scandal thing, and it was a weird thing, almost like the Army Hammer cannibal thing. But Pat O'Brien was kind of cool. I kind of dug him. The funniest person that came through my metal detector at that Matrix premiere down there at the Disney Hall was Robert Downey Jr. and his beautiful wife. And he was funny because he was coming up to my detector. And of course, the women have to give us their purses and we have to check them and stuff. But Robert Downey kind of danced through the metal detector and he goes, "Is this cool?" And he kind of did this thing. And I was just laughing and I'm thinking, what a fun guy. So kind of fun seeing him. And his wife was really nice. When we were checking the purses that night, it was kind of funny because a couple of us said, "Hey, man, a lot of tampons in the purses tonight." So I guess a lot of the women were, that time of the month. Kind of funny, right? I'm going to move on now. That premiere was fun for Matrix. We're going to move on real quick to West Wing at the Warner Brothers Studios. So West Wing was a show, of course, where Martin Sheen played the President of the United States. Great cast, Allison Janney, produced by Aaron Sorkin. Very popular show. This was huge for the studio at the time. The show was big, and I used to love going and checking out that set as well. The exterior part of that set, it's kind of a grainy picture. I'm going to put it up for you on YouTube. There's the outside of the White House and the outside of the soundstage there, and they'd use that for exterior shots when the president would pull up and stuff like that. But one of the things I loved about this show was that they casted Martin Sheen as the president because Martin Sheen, one of my favorite actors, I mean, this guy is very regal looking anyway. And when you met him and you saw him on the set, you thought to yourself, damn, he looks like the president. I spent a whole night with him one night doing a night shoot for the West Wing. And he just was the nicest man in the world. And of course, one of the greatest actors ever. What I loved about him is in between his scenes at the night shoot, there would be crew guys like janitors and other people on the lot doing things, emptying garbage. And he would wander over to those people and he would talk to them and he'd be like, "Hey, how you doing? what's your name? And he'd say, "Hey, how long you been working here? How long you been doing this? Really? Well, do you like it?" I mean, he just was so kind to the low level people. And that just said a lot for me about him, which made me feel really, really good because it's Martin Sheen and he's pretty legit actor. So that was pretty exciting for me. That Oval Office set inside the soundstage was amazing. It definitely was an exact replica of the Oval Office, and it was so cool to walk through there. I remember I took my late Aunt Darnay in there on a tour one day, and we had a tour guide there and everything. And my aunt says to the tour guide guy, "Hey, where's the room Monica Lewinsky went into with Clinton? Is that the room there next to the desk?" And the whole crowd in the studio started laughing and shit. And I was like, God, my aunt, she's killing me right now, right? I work here. But it was such a nice replica. And of course, everybody wanted to sit at that desk and be like, look at me, I'm the president. But amazing to see and the detail of it as well. And I just remembered the other night that Rob Lowe was on that show too, and I had kind of forgot about that. But The West Wing ran for several seasons, one of the most popular shows on TV, and with one of the best leading actors ever, Mr. Martin Sheen. And I swear Charlie looks just like him. So, talking about Martin, we did a wrap party for The West Wing over at the Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills. The whole cast was there: Allison Janney, Aaron Sorkin, the producer, of course, Mr. Sheen and his wife. One of the things I thought was really cute as I was escorting Martin and his wife, I believe her name's Janet, and I saw her whisper in his ear, "I don't want to go down and do the red carpet press thing with you. There's too many cameras." And she said, "I'll meet you at the table." And it was really cute. So I took her around behind everything, got her over to her table, and she literally just waited for Martin to go through and take his pictures and answer all the questions, say hi to everybody. It was mostly Access Hollywood and places like that, or shows like that that wanted their little snippet for their show. That was a fun night though, and it was a good party. And the Four Seasons is a pretty nice hotel. I've got another story about the Four Seasons that involves an old rapper that I had to guard for the day, and we'll talk about that in probably the next episode. Uh, but West Wing, Martin Sheen, good times with that one. Loved it. And I also wanted to mention something to you. I was thinking about this the other day. When I would go through Burbank and drive through it all the time, you start to notice the street names, right? So there was Chandler Boulevard in Burbank, and I used to think, I know damn well that the writers of Friends pulled Chandler's name from that street. And then there was Topanga Canyon, and I'm almost guaranteeing you that Topanga on was it Boy Meets World? I think it was Boy Meets World. That's where her name came from. So when you start seeing these things, you start going, okay, well, we're in Hollywood, and these writers live in Hollywood. I'm pretty sure that's where they're getting some of these names from. So it was always interesting to drive around there and see it. I'm going to show you a shot on the YouTube channel real quick of there's the Four Seasons Hotel right there. Pretty fancy place. And then just a quick shot if you're watching, there's Martin and his wife, Janet. Very nice lady. Uh, yeah, so it was just fun doing those kind of things. The Four Seasons Hotel. I did a thing up there on the roof with Little Bow Wow. And that was an interview that he did up at the pool on the roof, and spent a day up there doing that. That was kind of fun too. If you don't know who Little Bow Wow was, he was a little rapper guy and stuff. When we get into the next episode, we're going to kind of probably move pretty quickly into the late night show of Jimmy Kimmel Live. Spent a couple of years there, and I got a lot of stories from Jimmy and a lot of pictures if you're going to watch the YouTube channel. But definitely some very good times, lots of stories to share with you on that. Before we leave the podcast today, I just want to say happy 90th birthday to this man right here. If you're watching YouTube, that is Mr. Mel Brooks. He's 90 years old, and of course, married to Anne Bancroft for years, and the director of a lot of great films like Young Frankenstein, which is one of my favorites for sure. And he was just always one of those guys. If he made a movie, I went and saw it. I mean, everybody remembers Blazing Saddles and all that great stuff. Hey, listen, next week I got more for you. I'm so glad everybody's tuning in. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I don't want to keep it too long because I know a lot of people listen on their breaks or at lunch and stuff like that, trying to keep them around 30 minutes right now. Love you guys. Thank you for your support. We'll see you next week on Confessions of a Celebrity Bodyguard. I'm Chuck Oliveris. We will talk soon.
Say